Make sure the file exists. Anytime you're ready, file. All right, there it is. Hidden Object Guru here, joined by
The Unabridged game.
for another PC gamer list we're going to break down. This one of the ultimate being the ultimate guide for getting into the Resident Evil games, which, I mean, I've called things I write ultimate and definitive before, but it was always kind of like in a winking way. Like, I feel like making the statement that you were doing the ultimate thing is a very bold pronouncement that I would rarely feel comfortable doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying I will never do thing because then just like the universe is like, okay, now you're gonna absolutely have to do the thing.
Okay. All right, so let's check out this list. He's saying, "Hey, don't worry about playing them in order. He says it's a wildly inconsistent series. So we should just focus on the good ones." Oof.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
it's like wow, we start off right at the start with the backhanded compliment of don't worry, there are some good ones.
Play Resident Evil 2 remake first?
That was what first threw me is like, don't
Whoa.
don't get me wrong. R2 Make is like a really good game, but I would not have that be your first one. That one is tough at times. It is happy to kick you in very sensitive places vigorously if you are not familiar with survival horror.
Well, it's a brutal game, and it doesn't do. I gave it, I did 9.5 or something. I loved it, but that was going in with 20 years of playing Resident Evil games. If you don't know what a Resident Evil game is, what its mechanics are, and how they structure boss fights and encounters, and that's the first one you play, you are going to get destroyed.
Not just that, but also it uses knives in a fundamentally different way than literally every other entry in the series.
That's a strong point. Yeah, weird choice to start off with that one. I mean, again, I want to remind everybody, that's a great game. Like,
Oh,
it
it's
really
amazing.
is. All right, okay, then second to play Resident Evil HD Remaster?
Yeah, so we've gone from the latest one that everybody liked to the oldest.
Earliest playable game.
It's like,
Like literally, this is the oldest game that you can go in the Resident Evil series that you can go to Steam now and play. That's true. Like there are no
yeah.
any pre 2000 games. You can't just go to Steam and play those games. Like this is the oldest one you can play, and it's kind of crazy that they're like, "All right, go for a big, responsive, modern game to tank controls and baffling puzzles." Seems like a weird choice to me.
Yeah, it's a very weird choice in particular because just like I get wanting people to try Resident Evil HD because it was a landmark improvement. It was one of the best GameCube games of its day, but for pretty much actually the same reasons that you don't do R2 Make, it's like it's not very forgiving. It's
Nope.
very happy to beat you over the head with things. You will at least learn several series conventions, but not in the way that they've been used in most other games since. It's just
How
it's
do you
kind of
expect
one.
someone with no familiarity with the series, right, to play a game with crimson heads in it and not quit at the halfway point of the game?
Yeah,
Of course, you're going to quit at the halfway point of the game. The minute every zombie you previously killed starts getting up with superpowers, oh, and you're out of ammo now, you're just going to stop playing that game and you're never going to go back.
yeah. Now the thing is, the next two that are given are the ones that I would have chosen. Like Resident Evil 7 is
Yeah.
a very, very understandable one. It's very
Well, next is
easy to get
4.
into.
Let's
Oh
let's
yes,
just take a
sorry.
look at 4. 4 is fantastic. I think
Oh
we all
yeah.
can agree with that. 4 is fantastic, and it is so much more like new player friendly than 2 is.
I mean, it was a series soft reboot. It was
It was.
basically made to generate the entire Resident Evil franchise because they just couldn't figure out what to do with it.
Yep. And they said, okay, well let's rebuild this from the ground up. We're unlocking the camera, we're allowing free aiming, we're doing like punching and kicking, super moves, like a mercenary mode that really works. Like this was about onboarding people onto the franchise in a way that Resident Evil 2 really isn't. Like, this game slowly introduces every mechanic that is important to the game. If someone were to say to me, what is the first Resident Evil game you should play? I would say Umbrella Chronicles, but I'm a crazy person. But if they had never heard of Umbrella Chronicles and, didn't want to drag out their Wii, I would say Resident Evil 4 in a second.
Hmm.
Now, tell me why I'm wrong and Resident Evil 7 is the game they should play first.
I would say that all your arguments for 4 are very accurate, and it is one of the best ones on. Like I said, both of these are the ones that you actually want to start with, because 4 is more classically inclined still, because like you can't aim and shoot at the same time.
Move and shoot at the same time.
Aim and move and aim at the same time. Blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of others like that that's still very PlayStation 2 era Resident Evil. And if you want to be able to appreciate that era, but have reasonable controls and such, then 4 is your best bet.
Yeah.
If you want a modern entry that you don't need to know any of the lore, you don't need to know anything whatsoever, and you just happen to like first-person games of any kind, 7 is perfect for that because, again, it reinvigorates the franchise. It introduces completely new concepts while also using all of the old ones, even the knives, in a way that I actually really liked. It does a ton of fantastic things that just are so uniquely itself, but also capture the soul of the series. It is possibly one of the best arguments I've ever seen for the thesis of what Resident Evil is all about. So, if you're going to start somewhere, I think the most accessible and purest and focused entry might be the good one to go with.
Completely. Now, and I will say this, Jack is a much better Mr. X than Mr. X is.
Oh, he's got so that car, that moment with
the car scene.
That is fantastic.
You know what's really embarrassing? Level. I only found out, like, this year that Jack can get in the car and chase you. I had always just grabbed the keys and got in the car and rammed him. Always. I didn't know he could get in the car and chase you.
That's what actually happened to me, is he did get in the car with me.
Oh, yeah, and I finally saw it happen, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely insane. And just, like, that is what makes Resident Evil 7 so great, is that it also feels personal. It adapts to your choices and gives you so much agency when most games, including the Resident Evil series, aren't super keen on that. They prefer to have you follow their script. Resident Evil 7's like, no, we accounted for this.
Yep. Whatever you want to try, we're there for. It's amazing. Like, Resident Evil 7 is such an accomplishment. It's weird, because it's the best game in the series. I'm comfortable saying that as a giant fan of the series, who's played everything in the series. I think it's the best game in the series, and every single game after it is going to be a disappointment compared to it, but I still think you should play it first. I really do. Hey, in this picture of Resident Evil 7, who's that supposed to be on the right?
I think
is there a dead body on the right while you're in the...
I think that might either be the cameraman from the one thing, or that's a dead body. I don't.
Is that Andre? I mean, I don't think so.
Anyway, man, my dinner of Andre took a dark turn.
Oh no, no, because the cameraman gets burned to death, so it's not the cameraman.
Oh right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
And the birthday tape, but yeah, Resident Evil 7 is magnificent, and I see your point. And to go from Resident Evil 7 to the original Resident Evil 2.
Okay, as someone who has been on many occasions an advocate for janky, weird games and everything, it's like, there's pretty much one argument I can give for playing the original Resident Evil 2 if you're just getting into Resident Evil now.
Absolutely, please tell me.
If you want to see just how much people were struggling to figure out how to do what would later happen in Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2 is great at showing that, because when I actually got to try it and experience how the aiming worked, experienced how the tank controls worked, just everything, it's like, I can absolutely see how they were already ramping up the action, how they were already trying to make it be more like Resident Evil 4, but oh my gosh, they didn't realize how they could do it yet. Plus, they didn't have the technology at the time to do it the way they clearly wanted to do it. But besides that, the only other benefit you'll get from playing Resident Evil 2 is that on the PC version, for which there was a PC version for the original PlayStation game, There's a surprising amount of mod support. So
Oh,
if you just by chance find out that you love these tanky controls, if you love these lo-fi graphics and everything, grab it on PC. It actually is, in most cases, I've seen it on eBay for relatively cheap for a game this old and this rare. And just grab all the mods, and then you can have a whole bunch of extra content that no one else would have ever experienced at the time of the release.
nice. For me, the
Otherwise,
one
I
reason
can't give you a
is
good reason to experience it this
the
way.
one reason for me is so they did two fun things, and this is I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but that's okay. I mean, I'll own that. There are two things they did in Resident Evil 2 that they never did in any other Resident Evil game to this day. They one made it so if you shoot a shotgun not at a zombie's head, but at his stomach or her stomach, and they're the exact right distance away, the shotgun blast will cut the zombie in half, the legs will flop to one side, and the top part of the zombie will start crawling towards you and biting at your ankles and trying to kill you. And if the first time it happens, it blows your mind because like I didn't know this could happen in video games. Like, I didn't know a game could respond this way to my actions. This is a complete transformation of Resident Evil. And second, you can get a super shotgun in the game. So you take a shotgun and you mod your shotgun into a super shotgun. And then instead of shooting off zombies' heads like normal shotguns do, when you aim it upwards and fire, basically 60% of the zombie's torso and one of their arms gets blown off,
Oof.
leaving like a ragged triangle of meat that then flops over. Like the game was excessively surprisingly gory in a way that no other game in the series is. Not even, well, I guess 7. But 7, really got off on its gore.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have a chainsaw dual boss fight for nothing.
Oh god, I love that scene. Uh and now we're finally getting to 5. I would say play 5 and 6 back to back personally, but oh my god, they put 5 in the maybe play?
Oh
Wait,
yes,
we're
yeah.
already in the maybe plays, which means 6 might be a don't play. I don't want to live in a world where 6 isn't a must play. Okay? That's crazy to me. If you have other arguments, we'll get there, but I am staking out that argument that it is a
I have no
must play.
arguments against 6. I do have some against 5 in that simply I've tried playing it more than once, and
Yeah.
literally the only reason that I plan on going back to it is that it has PlayStation Move support, and I kind of want to see how that works. That's about it, because like
uh
here's what my big takeaway from Resident Evil 5. Bring
yeah.
back Sheva. She was like the one part of that
She
game
was
that I
fun.
legitimately enjoyed.
Here's the thing about 5. It's too long. The shooting's not great, but I think the entire final act of that game, it goes so big and so crazy. Like, try to picture what game goes to the kind of variety of locations that Resident Evil 5 does. This starts in an African village, moves to an oil refinery, goes to a series of islands that you have to like manually fanboat your way around, goes to recreate a kind of racistly depicted village. Well, and the game is like, well, it's not a real native village. It's a tourist attraction that has just been infected by people zombies who decided to dress up. I mean, it's pretty racist. Let's move on. But right, we go from there to an aircraft carrier. No, wait, to an underground city, to an ancient, to like an ancient secret thing, to an aircraft carrier, to a super plane, to a volcanic island. Like, who does that? Oh no, wait, I forgot. I guess it's not an aircraft carrier. Oh no, wait, you do go to an aircraft carrier, but before that, you're like on a battleship, or is that also the aircraft carrier?
Memory's fuzzy on that
But my
part.
point is, like, no game except for Resident Evil 6, which we'll talk about in a second, in the series has a larger scope than 5. Like,
Oh
there
yeah,
is just
it's basically
so
James
much
Bond with
content in that game.
zombies.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. But the problem is the combat's not fantastic, and like unless you play co-op, the game is a mess. Like
Oh
trying
yeah.
to navigate the two characters, it's not great, and I'm going to happily admit that. Even as I think that everyone must play this game just because like The scale of it is so completely different than everything in the series, other than 6, which is even bigger. They think maybe you should play Resident Evil the original. I'm like, if you play the remake, I don't see a reason to play the original.
Yeah, not really. Like literally the only
No.
reason there's the only thing, and again, this is thanks to mod support, is that people have modified ROMs to fix the director's cut for Resident Evil so that
Oh,
it
that's
has like the
good.
proper music and the gore. Like there are ROM hacks that do that, and like again, if you just absolutely love this aesthetic, you can't get enough of it,
Yeah.
then there's that. But that is again just basically the only reason. And then honestly, odds are if you are super into that, you are probably still better off just checking out like Puppet Combos library and stuff like
Oh
that
yeah. No, no.
because
Puppet Combos has modernized this kind of game in beautiful ways, and they're amazing games. But yeah, they're doing better than the original Resident Evil. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Really? I mean, it's fine. I liked the one thing they did in this that they never did again in the series, which was the branching storyline.
mm,
Like it's a super short game, but it's wide. Like you can have, I think, 4 different endings, and there's like locations that you will only see if you go through direction X, Y, or Z. There are bosses you will only see if you go in certain playthroughs. Like just they knew they were making a short game, so they made it as replayable as they possibly could. But I
hmm
don't think this is essential to go back and play.
you know that's fine as a maybe. That said, how dare you suggest that Resident Evil Revelations is something that someone shouldn't play? Because these are also both of the Revelations games are two of the most accessible, best onboarding game experiences I've ever seen for Resident Evil.
Yeah. I would say that the second Resident Evil Revelations is better than the first one.
Oh, no question.
The first one, I think there are some balance issues with those monsters,
Oh yeah, towards the
but
end, it's just a slog.
oh, it's so frustrating. And God, the system that it originally had when it was like a 3DS game, where you have to like scan a room to find what you need to pick up. You can never pick up an item without first scanning the room to like make the item appear. Oof, that was bad. And I wish they had removed it of all subsequent versions, but all they did was make it slightly more convenient in all subsequent versions. That's what I liked about 2 is they took all of the questionable accessibility things out of Resident Evil Revelations and just left with this really good hardcore survival horror game.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's like in some ways there's certain moments where it's like, wow, this is about as close as Resident Evil is going to come in proximity to Silent Hill
Oh
until they
yeah.
started doing 7 because of just the aesthetic, which clearly was drawing from Silent Hill
Oh,
2's other world.
100%. That prison in Resident Evil 2, you're right. It's basically like a level from Silent Hill. There's no question.
And just, oh my gosh, in raid mode. I literally did a
I did
column
love
just
raid
like
mode.
weeks
Yeah.
ago about how good raid mode is, and Revelations garage that. I didn't think
Yeah.
you could make mercenaries better, and then they found a way. They
No,
made Horror
it's
Destiny,
I
and
would
it's
say that it is my
amazing.
favorite. I normally don't even like. You know my feelings about loot-based games. But the combat is so entertaining in Revelations and Revelations 2. I was fine with it. Just give me an excuse to keep doing these combat situations. I adore this.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I know I loved the raid mode. God, I wish that had come back. But then it's not my favorite though. He's saying avoid Resident Evil 6?
Apparently, it's the worst
Arguably the
entry.
worst entry? Are you insane? Wow.
I particularly love that he calls it just a poor third-person shooter. I'm sorry, what constitutes a good third-person shooter then?
What?
What
This thing is fantastic.
It's one of
Like,
the
I
most
have
in-depth
literally
third-person shooters
spent
I've ever played.
dozens of hours in its version of the raid mode. Its mercenaries. Like, just playing these awesome. Just for a chance to play more of this game's awesome combat. Like so many unique enemies, so many unique ways to fight them, so many weapons, so many characters, each with their own set of special abilities. Like it's a fantastic game. I don't understand how anyone could complain about this. So idiotic story. I mean, first off, all of the Resident Evil stories aren't great. There's no great Resident Evil story. I think that's fair to say, right? Like, you've never walked away from a Resident Evil game saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe that amazing plot."
Yeah, no, like they've gotten good emotional moments, like the end of Revelations 2, based on
Yep.
if Moira
Obviously,
overcomes her
yes.
stuff and
Yeah, yeah.
everything. But like, yeah, there's never been an outstanding
I would go on a
plot.
limb and say that Resident Evil Revelations 2 has the best story in Resident Evil. Like, we haven't talked about story at all. And I would argue that it probably has the best, like, story,
Hmm.
but, like, we're not really at Resident Evil games for plot. And Resident Evil 6 literally ends with you fighting a giant fly mutant on top of a skyscraper. And then wait, and then stabbing it with a lightning rod so that lightning will strike it, killing it. It's amazing.
It is, and
You
it
know?
just the sheer amount of variety going on, because like there's a lot of games that have done action and third
Yeah.
person combat where it just would be like, nah, this would just be a gimmick. No, they build entire levels around this stuff.
Well, I
They
mean,
go to such an
the
insane extent.
the whole Jake, and the thing is, it's all about each one of the three campaigns is a different kind of game. Jake and Shelley's campaign is a melee combat game. Like, it's about getting up close to enemies and clubbing them and stabbing them and using your shock stick as her. Right? And that's what it's about. It's about being in close proximity and having quick, brutal fights. The Chris and Pierce campaign is a third person shooter where everybody has automatic weapons and you're constantly ducking behind cover and repositioning and trying to get shots in. And the Leon campaign is a classic Resident Evil survivor horror thing where you're always overwhelmed by monsters and you always don't have enough ammo and you have to play it very strategically and dodge enemies.
And
Like,
let's not forget Ada's campaign, which is basically a stealthy affair.
yes, thank you for reminding me. Then there's the fourth campaign, Ada, which is a stealth action adventure. Like, it is every type of game in one game. And as I always say, I think if these morons had forced you to play the game in the correct order, everyone would have, like, well, not loved the game, but people would respect the game and like the game a lot more. Because I don't know anybody, except for the people I've told, obviously, but everyone I've talked to about the game who played it unrelated to my review or didn't talk to me about it first, played the Leon campaign first.
Oh yeah, because
Because it's
everyone
at the top of
gravitates
the
to
menu.
Leon.
And he's the most beloved character. He's at the top of the menu. Let's do the Leon campaign first. And the problem is, the Leon campaign spoils the entire plot of the game because it's supposed to be the last one you play, other than Ada Wong, obviously. But it's supposed to be the last one you play, so every single plot reveal that happens in the Jake campaign and the Chris campaign is explained in and spoiled completely in the Leon campaign. And when it was designed, when it was made, they clearly had an order in mind. And then for some reason, when they shipped it, they took off telling you what order to play it in. And I have no idea why. I will never understand it. Everyone has to play it. I think it's one of the best Resident Evil games. I've been very open about that, but wow. They also hate Resident Evil Zero. They're saying you shouldn't play. Well, okay, we'll talk about Resident Evil Zero, but they're saying you shouldn't play Resident Evil 3 Remake?
Yep.
That's crazy. Okay, but first, let's just talk a little about Zero. Your thoughts on Zero?
I don't have much thoughts on Zero.
I know it's literally the most forgettable main series
But
game.
like seriously, even when you play, like you said, you're just talking about Umbrella Chronicles. It's like even when they try to abridge Zero into just three
It's
chapters that
so
you can play
boring.
in an hour and a half, it
I know,
just
it's so boring.
sorry, Rebecca Chambers, your game just isn't that interesting.
No, it isn't. You're not interesting. Your game's not interesting. I don't even remember Billy's last name. Like, seriously. But how are they saying you shouldn't play Resident Evil 3 Remake? What are you, crazy? I mean,
Uh,
just because Nemesis isn't as, like, surprising as he is in the original version?
apparently that is big enough, and there's the vague argument that the environments were forgettable and dingy, and something about zombie physics. I
What are you
don't.
talking about zombie physics being simplified from 2. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean.
That literally does not make sense as an argument.
Yeah, like that's just bonkers. Also, this is the game that brought hunters back into the franchise and made them terrifying.
Oh yeah,
The
because for the
hunters in
longest
that
time they were
game,
just evil Kermit the Frog with fangs.
yeah, but here they're freaky as hell. So fast, so deadly. Like I learned where everyone in the game, was, and I'm like, rocket launcher, rocket launcher. I don't even want to see you guys. Resident Evil Operation Raccoon
Hold
City.
on, hold on. I do want
Oh,
to
sorry,
also add
please.
just real quick. The last thing with three. Three is the one that has a very easy difficulty mode for
I
if you're listening to
know.
the series,
Where
where
you
you
start
get
the
an
game.
assault rifle right
They
out of the
just hand
start.
you an assault rifle at the start of the game. I mean, that in a way makes it the most accessible Resident Evil game.
Yeah, like you can turn it
Ca-
into a straight up action game
yeah,
if you want.
yeah, casual. And by the way, it's super easy to get enough points to get yourself get enough gameplay points for trophies in the game to get yourself some unlimited ammo weapons, and then the game just becomes a blast. So yeah, no, I really liked Resident Evil Nemesis 3. Sorry, the 3 remake, right? I really liked it. I don't think it's as good as 2. I don't think it's as good as 7. I'm sure it won't be as good as 8, but it's a really fun ride.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is just sort of an instance. I want to emphasize here because we mentioned the unlimited ammo. That's not a weird thing. Resident Evil
Yeah.
has been doing that for years,
Oh,
so
absolutely. They always give
it's
you
never
Resident
been
Evil.
bad about using that.
They very frequently give you unlimited ammo weapons. The thing about Resident Evil 3 is that it's the easiest it's ever been to get unlimited ammo weapons. Like just by playing the game on whatever difficulty, you're going to get enough trophies to get yourself an unlimited ammo weapon for your second playthrough. Whereas in the previous games, you had to do like elaborate things to get an item that gives you unlimited ammo for every weapon you pick up. But in this game, there's an unlimited ammo version of every weapon, and so each one of them is relatively cheap and totally worth getting. And I mean, I'm just going to brag here for a second because this is a perfect time to mention it. Fun fact: I'm the person who found out how to defeat the easy way to defeat Nemesis, the final boss fight. So you know how Nemesis, he becomes a giant thing and you have to power up the railgun?
Yep.
Okay, well, on the first 3 difficulty levels, it's literally the easiest boss fight in the entire series. Like, it is a joke. He moves like he's underwater. It's ridiculous. If you play it on Hardcore or Inferno, it is the hardest boss fight in the entire series. But I figured out a way to defeat him very easily, and at last count, it has helped 60,000 people beat the game on Inferno.
Hmm.
So I'm very proud of that. Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, literally the worst game in the series not to be named Umbrella Corps.
Yes, and I do want to add here though, he gets it wrong. Operation Raccoon City isn't canon. It's
No, it's
not
not.
actually set in the rest of the timeline because that's actually one of the things he argues is a selling point is that it's a story taking place between 2 and 3. No, it's not. It's meant to
No.
be a total spin-off thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
act. None of these characters ever appeared in anything ever again. The things they do did not happen. So,
No.
like, you can completely ignore it.
No, 3 is a side story of 2 taking place at the same side as 2. Raccoon City is just complete nonsense. Yeah, and it is nice. It is nice that Umbrella Corps is down here, right? I'm very happy to see that. Umbrella Corps is just complete trash. Do you even have anything to say about Umbrella Corps?
My main statement is I feel really bad because clearly someone wants to make a PvP Resident Evil game, and
Oh
I
yeah.
expect that the next time a list like this happens, Reverse is going to be sitting even lower than Umbrella Corps because I know that there's at least some people who like Operation Raccoon City's competitive multiplayer. I know there are people who still
They
are
exist.
actively playing it to this day, which is kind of maddening.
That's insane to me.
But yeah, just like co-op is what you're best at, Resident Evil. You
Just stick to
don't have
co-op.
to keep doing PvP.
I know. It
Like
just
six
doesn't
is the
fit in that world.
it really does like the best PvP in 6, which you and I believe tried out at one point was
Oh yeah.
basically just competitive mercenaries where each one is trying to outrace the
Score
other
the
in
other,
terms of
yeah.
zombies they can kill.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the best mode. I will say though, one thing that 6 did nicely, it had monster invasion mode, where one
Mm.
person would be playing the game and then an actual human player would play as a monster.
Oh yeah.
That is a little fun. All right, Resident Evil, and now we're into stuff you can't get on PC, so it's not official part of his list. It is weird that Code Veronica isn't on available on PC. All right,
Especially
that's
since it's
very
available on
strange.
Xbox One and PS4.
Outbreak, there's no way that's coming out on PC. Like PC makes more sense for the multiplayer, but I'm sure it would take so much work to redo all of the netcode to play it on Steam that it's not worth anybody's time or money to do. I mean, I liked Resident Evil Outbreak and Outbreak 2, but I just don't think it's realistically ever going to happen.
Um,
And that's the end of the list. What about Resident Evil Gun Survivor for things that
there's a
aren't
whole
on?
bunch of ones that just aren't mentioned here. There's a
I
whole
guess,
list of spin-offs, but I do actually want to note quick on Outbreak.
yeah.
Fans were able to restore the online connection so long as you're using a Japanese copy of the game. Like they've got that working with PlayStation 2 emulation and everything.
Oh
So
wow.
there
Okay.
might actually be a chance.
You know what? I really thought it was going to be impossible, but I have been corrected. Thank you for letting me know that. I will hope to be able to play it again sometime in the future, because that would be very cool. Oh, Resident Evil. Okay, so big oversight here. That good but not on the PC. How is he left off this list? Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles.
Guess he doesn't play many rail shooters.
Maybe, but it's like, I mean, Umbrella Chronicles is great because of this, wonderful fun thing of them taking like all of the assets they had made for Resident Evil 0 and Remake and just like making another game out of these assets.
Hmm.
It's such a cool idea and more games should do that. And it's a good rail shooter. But then you move into Umbrella Darkside Chronicles and you're like it's a wholly original game, all new content. It's a prequel to 4 to find out where he met Krauser and what happened to Krauser to turn him into a monster. Like, I said Krauser. That's not. That's. What's his name?
I thought his name
From
was
4?
Crowder.
Oh, it is Krauser. Okay. I was accidentally thinking about Wolfgang Krauser from Fatal Fury. But no, his name was Krauser. Okay. How he met Krauser and what happened to Krauser to turn him into this monster. Like, it's all covered in that game. So it's an important in canon prequel, and it's just a really great rail shooter at the same time. And by the way, dear Capcom, I've got a VR helmet. You've got Darkside Chronicles and Umbrella Chronicles. Can we get something going here? You got this game sitting there that's completely playable, so maybe just let me pop on my VR helmet and play some Resident Evil VR. I don't care if it's old graphics. That would be amazing.
Mm.
So I'm very ticked off because this game came out that was Resident Evil VR. I don't know if I told you about it. But it's essentially in every way, shape, and form Resident Evil VR. I think it's called Propagation VR. I would have to check that. But it is. Like, what they have done is they have taken Resident Evil. It is called Propagation VR,
Yes, I see.
right? You've looked it up. Good. Right? And so they've taken an entire Resident Evil game and crammed it into a 15-minute static defense game. So you're not moving. There's no rail shooting. You're just standing in one spot and you can turn 360 degrees. And within that framework, they have managed to do the entire experience of playing one Resident Evil game in 15 minutes. It's unbelievable.
And that's pretty freaking incredible. And
And they're
clearly
doing
the
a
rest of the
co-op
internet
version.
agrees with you, given how it's overwhelmingly positive.
Well, it's also free. So, I think people are more likely to. They'll only charge you for the co op version.
Hmm.
So you can play it 2 players, which I assume is even more amazing. But,
Yeah, that's
like, the main game free, if you want to play with friends, it's $10. But honestly, it's worth it. And if they haven't yet, been contacted by Capcom to make Resident Evil branded VR games, I don't know why, because somebody has successfully made Resident Evil a VR wave shooter that is perfectly Resident Evil, and I would encourage everyone to check it out because it's like the lost Resident Evil game.
Hmm.
So yeah, really questionable list here, PC games. I get your point, but yeah, you've got some very strange choices here,
I'm
especially the idea of playing Resident Evil 2 first.
Yeah, that's a bit of a stiff climb to have players take. I do want to throw in one extra option as
Oh,
actually
please.
a lost Resident Evil game, which is, would you like Resident Evil 4, but you can move and aim at the same
Well,
time? Allow me
obviously.
to introduce you to Cold Fear,
Cold Fear. I knew
which
you were going to mention Cold Fear. What the
because just
second you said
let's
it,
face
man.
it, it's a Resident Evil game by all
It is.
respects. It just
It
happens
is.
to be published by Ubisoft.
Is it on Steam? Can you get Cold Fear on
Oh
Steam?
yeah, you can get it on Steam. You can get it on Uplay. It's usually like $6.
Okay, and by the way, $6 is the right price for that because I love Cold Fear. Don't get me wrong. That game is 2.5 hours long. Like it is not a long game at all. Oh my god, it is currently right now while we're recording this, and I'll post this tonight, so maybe people have a chance to do this. It is currently $2 on Steam.
Yep. Which is like just, for basically someone trying to do The Thing and Resident Evil 4 on a
Oh yeah.
boat. There,
Oh,
there, there are much
I
worse
mean, it's
options.
really good. It is a really good game. You know, it was originally developed. It was originally going to be published by Namco, and then they dropped it
I did
because
not know that.
they didn't think it was going to work. They thought it was too short, and they didn't like it. But it was mostly done under Namco, and then Namco canceled it, and DarkWorks went and found someone else to publish it because we basically finished the game, so maybe we could have another one of these. There you go. All right. So that is that. Do you have anything you'd like to send people to?
Well, as always, you can find me on The Escapist, where I'm write the column Second Look and am doing book reviews, which the newest of which will be on Star Wars The High Republic Into the Dark, which rather fittingly involves a lot of horror elements. Not
Oh.
zombies, but if you're a big fan of Critters 4, Little Shop of Horrors, and Chopping Mall, and wanted parts of those in Star Wars, keep an eye out for that review.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say that no one wanted parts of those parts of those in Star Wars, but I am interested to see how it turned out. So I will look forward to that review. And of course, the Unabridged Gamer channel, which should
Yes, you can also
absolutely
find
drop by.
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at the Unabridged Gamer, where we're going to be. I am officially announcing this because I have a plan in place.
I love
We are
plans.
making up on all the lost time because there's been a lot of real life shenanigans going on, but we're going to be getting all those lost Clash of the Tie-in games. We're going to be talking about motion games, and we're going to talk about the PS4. And I'm sure my opinions on the PS4 will not upset anyone.
Well, I look forward to it. So until next time, thanks for watching. We'll see you back here for more weird lists as we find them. But until then, I'm going to say that's right. Au revoir.